Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. Today I'm with Brett Rezewski, which I asked him 5 times so that I could get it right because it's Polish. But funny story, I was telling him this. I grew up in Southwest Michigan, but there was a girl named Jill Janowski, and I only remembered her name because when you're in high school and a girl's cute, you remember their name. So like when he said it was Polish, like, oh, that's it was just one or not, yeah, it was just one of those weird, funny things. But you really don't care about that. Today's about Brett. So Brett, first and foremost, thank you for hopping on the show. I don't remember exactly how did we even connect? Who connected us?
There was a Facebook group that we were a part of. I think Christian Business Owners Facebook group, and I was just looking to network and found you.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Like again, here goes this. The power of networks. Brett reached out to me and now he's on the show. A lot of times we don't get what we need because we don't ask. But Brett,
Hmm.
for people that don't know you, in your own words, let us know who you are, who you help, and what you do.
Okay. Well, I have a veteran background. I was in the Air Force for 8 years. I worked on the KC-135 aircraft, and then after that, I went to school to become an X-ray tech, where I worked at the Portland VA. That's what led me to Oregon. That's where I'm at right now. And yeah, things were going according to my plan, but God has other plans for us. And what really was like a very unexpected change of events. So my wife had a massive stroke in June of 2017 due to a disease called Moya disease. We didn't know that she had it until after the stroke through a lot of tests. She was also 6 weeks pregnant at the time of the stroke, and that really rocked our world. Um, because of the history of Moya disease and stroke, the doctor said that there's a very high chance that she could have another stroke, which would kill her. So I was in a very tough situation where do I go for the life for the mom or the life for the baby?
Mhm.
And because we have three boys, and Michelle was only 35 when she had the stroke. I'm like, I want the boys to be able to be here to grow up with, while mom is here. So after a lot of counsel and prayer, made the hard decision about the baby.
Mhm.
But that really, it's amazing how God puts things in our life to really get us outside of our comfort zone. I think that's been really big for me lately because where does growth happen for us? Does it happen inside or outside of our comfort zone? Usually
Outside
happens
or inside,
outside.
sorry.
Yeah, it happens
Yeah,
very
outside of our comfort zone.
outside of our comfort zone. So I feel like what I was doing as far as like my family, I was very much like in a script. My life was a script. And my wife, she was coming up to me many times before the stroke, and she was like, I am overwhelmed. Like I have all of these boys to take care of. I feel like I'm doing everything on my own. That's what she would say several times. And I felt like I was doing my part. I felt like that I was going to work, I was providing. When I got home, I would help with the kids. But as far as like planning anything and doing all that stuff, it was all on her
Mm.
until the stroke happened. And then I'm like, man, I really appreciated everything that my wife did because then in just a split second, everything's now on my shoulders.
Mhm.
And that really caused me to, number one, become more appreciative with what she was doing. And it also put me in a situation, the phrase like sink or swim.
Mhm.
Well, I remember like I was shortly after the stroke, maybe like a week after, um, I was at my breaking point. I came home. I was spending like living at the hospital with Michelle. I did not want to leave her side. And then, but I wanted to get a little bit sense of normalcy so I could spend with my boys. So I had somebody stay in the hospital with Michelle. And then I was at home with the boys. And then at the time, my boys were 9, 5, and 2.
Mm.
So my middle son, Easton, he's very witty, very fun, very energetic. And as a 5-year-old, that was still true then. So he was asked like all these questions after questions after questions. And I just remember I had a breakdown. I yelled at him because I was so overwhelmed with everything. Like, how am I going to figure out my life?
Mhm.
You know? So I fell down on my knees and I just started bawling. And then Easton came over to me as a 5-year-old and he was like, Dad, it's gonna be okay.
Hmm.
So I really feel like God used him to give me that insight and peace to know that things were gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
love that.
and from that point on, I just remember like I made a conscious decision that I was going to stand up and like be the best husband, the best father, the best man that I can be for my family. Because I knew that if I didn't do that, there could be like significant repercussions for my boys. Like they could grow up resenting God, grow up with bitterness towards me, towards whatever.
Hmm.
But now my kids are thriving. They're all honor roll students. My oldest just graduated high school. He's going to George Fox University in Newburgh in mechanical engineering. My youngest son is now an entrepreneur. He's got two 3D printers that he
Nice.
paid for on his own, and he bought another one through his profits that he makes. So total of two. Um, he's got his classmates are his business partners, and I feel like all of that was possible, number one, by God's grace for towards me and my family, but that launched me into entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
which is what I do now. I knew right after the stroke that I needed to have another way to make an income because of my wife's demands. There's a lot of things that she does that are outside of, typical insurance, like
Hmm.
chiropractic, massage, acupuncture. She goes to a private like PT program
Hmm.
that doesn't insurance doesn't pay for. So I'm like, working a full-time job just didn't cover it. So I was like, I gotta find something else where I can make an income.
Hmm.
And that's what really launched me in entrepreneurship. So I was 7 years ago when I started, not knowing at all what I was doing, and I did things the wrong way up until I would say the last year, where I've been
Hmm.
really focused on like this is the path. I'm getting results and I'm showing people how to do it, and I'm just really dialed in right now. And so that's who I help right now. I'm focusing on helping Christian dads become better providers and not only that, but become better leaders because when people work with me, they're not only learning how to make an income, but they're learning, I'm helping them with their mindset. If they have issues with like money mindset, I used to also. So
Hmm.
I've been reprogramming my brain around that. And I'm helping other people do the same. So it's kind of like there's coaching, a lot of coaching that I do along with that,
Hmm.
with the income side.
No, I love that. And there was a lot that we unpacked there.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, I respect your vulnerability and willingness to say stuff because in some circles people would have tripped out. So like you had to make a super hard decision when your wife had this stroke. And you made it. And it wasn't an easy decision, and I'm sure it was super
No.
hard. So I very much respect that. And I feel I just want to say it this way. You made the right decision. I'm
Yeah.
only going to say that because some people might judge you, but screw them. They're going to judge everybody. So it doesn't really matter where they're at.
Yeah, I'm just
It's
gonna
it.
stop you right there really quick. Because I was when I was talking to my pastors about this, one thing that really told me, one of my pastors told me, he said that God the Father allowed his son to die so that you will live. And then I
Mhm.
knew what he meant by that. He meant that, God allowed this significant injury in my life to happen
Mhm.
so that the decision was really made up for me.
Right.
God had
Yeah.
other purposes for that baby.
Mhm.
And because of all of this, like we wrote a book about our story, which can be found on Amazon.
Mhm.
Like a lot where it would help a lot of people, and that's what we enjoy. So
Yeah.
sorry to cut
No,
you off.
no. You're good. I just wanted to. People can be very judgy because everyone sees through
Yeah,
their rose-colored glasses. Everyone sees through their experiences, and they judge based off of that. So when I
right.
hear something, especially when it's a hard story and you have to make a decision, I like to just not call it out, but also almost encouraging the fact that that was the right decision to make, whether or not people agreed with it or not. That was all I was saying there. The other
Yeah.
thing I've noticed through here was it's almost like I think things happen for you. So I'm not saying that God gave your wife a stroke. So do not hear what I'm not saying. But I am saying that in life, people have strokes. Life happens. And it's caused you now to step up into a role in a way that maybe you would not have stepped up into. if
Yeah,
before, because now you're being the
totally.
leader in the home. Now you're doing more stuff, and now you're seeing the ability of it to come into your kids, into their lives, with your oldest being a mechanical engineer, with the other one already being an entrepreneur. And I'm sure the third one has amazing gifts as well. It's
He's been
just
working
that
on writing.
yeah, so you have a
Yeah, yeah,
writer, you have an entrepreneur, and you have the engineer. Like I think things like that happen for a reason. And then
yeah,
you also said this over the last 8 years, now you've dialed in who you are as a man, what you're supposed to do, and your purpose with helping others, but you were willing to say, hey, I made mistakes, which is great because a lot of times in this space, we only show you the sunny side. So I
yeah.
commend you for that. I just wanted to recap what I was hearing you say
Thanks,
because a
Joe.
lot of
Appreciate
times
that.
everyone tries to show you the rainbows and unicorns, but they don't show you the hoop that you had to walk through to get there.
Oh man, there's been a lot of scars all along the way, and we still carry them. One thing with my wife when she asks often like why did God allow this to happen? And I know you touched on that briefly. Like God knew that Michelle was going to be born with this brain malformity. He knew what was going to happen. He knew that Michelle was going to have a stroke. And one thing, like, as a Bible believing Christian, reading when I was like, reading through the book of John shortly after the stroke. And then, because in John chapter 9, it talks about there's a man who was born blind. And then the Pharisees were trying to pinpoint some kind of sin that the man had committed as a reason why he was born blind, or like sin of his father or something like that. And then God or Jesus says, who is God, right? Jesus says in John 9, verse 3, says, Jesus answered, it was neither that this man sinned nor his parents, but it was so that the works of God might be displayed in him. And so like, I don't know what God has in plan for us. Maybe this is part of it. Maybe like he's still gonna do some miracle in my wife. She still is paralyzed on the left side.
Mhm,
I am her full-time caregiver at home. So I do literally everything.
mhm,
But it's also I'm giving my boys other like I'm delegating a lot of the tasks.
mhm,
My hands are off from laundry, dishes. They do that all. And it was funny. I just had a conversation with my 11-year-old son. And he's like, there are some kids in my class who don't even have chores. And my response
mhm.
was, I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if they're not doing chores at this age, how are they going to know what to do anything when they're older? If they're not given
Mhm.
the responsibilities now.
Yeah. Well, but I was actually talking to a different guest right before this, and he helps men buy back their time. Like he had a multi-million dollar business and realized that he wasn't spending time with his son, and God like caught him and pulled him and said, "Hey, no," and he changed it. And one of the things he said, and you just said that, and or actually one thing that I said when we were talking was, for centuries, men would train their boys how to be men. They would get them in apprenticeships. They would do that, or they would connect with
Yeah.
another man. That's a gift that you're getting to impart and do in an age where there's a lot of men without father figures. So that's
Yeah.
one of the, I'm going to say, beauties of what you're experiencing, even though it's painful and it's not fun. That's like a light spot there. Like you're training them at 11 real world skills. I'm sure you're training them other things as well, but like even the
Hmm.
simple real world skills that most boys now don't get, because like you said, all my classmates, they don't do anything. Their parents give them a screen, they run away. So again, I think sometimes there's always hidden beauty even in sorrow.
Yeah. There is. I also feel like it takes a decision to see it too.
Hmm.
Because just like like somebody can become bitter about it, they decide to become bitter about it.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes things are outside of our control that happen to us, but what is within our control is our response.
Mhm. So how did you not become bitter? Because a lot of people in your situation would have done one of three things. A lot of guys would have just bailed. Other guys would have just become super bitter and grumpy, and other guys would have become apathetic and do it, but do it with resentment. How did you like navigate that? Did you have like was it your church system? Was it a friend? Was it your pro life? How did you navigate that aspect?
Yeah, first I got to say that I'm not perfect. I mean, I have some days where I'm exhausted and I have
Hmm.
apathy,
Oh yeah.
and I'm working on that. But what really, yeah, it was my church that I belonged to, Southwest Bible in Oregon. And it started really fast. So I was at work when my wife had the stroke. My kids were at home. They were 9, 5, and 2. And my oldest son called 911, which saved her life. And then right after that, he called me and he's like, Dad, you have to leave work. Like, Mom, it's not okay. You need to leave work immediately. So I
Mhm.
went to the hospital and then I called one of my best friends, John. And then from there, he called the senior pastor, Scott. And then from there, what resulted was 25 people from my church were with me, all gathered around me in the waiting room of the hospital. And the outpouring was just incredible. And then from there, my pastor turned to the book of Romans, chapter 8, which I love Romans 8. I memorized the whole thing last year. But he turned to Romans 8, I think verse 16. Find it real quick. Yeah, Romans 8:16 says, um, the Spirit Himself testifies with our spirit that we are children of God, and if children, heirs also. And let's see, wait, let me refer it back. Maybe it was further back. I don't remember right now. For we do not know how to pray as we should, but the
Mhm.
Spirit Himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. And then my brain, oh yeah, it's in verse 24 of chapter 8. But my mind went to Romans 8:18 because I previously had highlighted it, and that's what Romans 8:18 says. It says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory that is to be revealed to us." And
Mhm.
then I think it was just like the immediate like peace that God filled even then while they were operating on Michelle's brain. She
Mhm.
had to have like a large part of the temporal lobe on the right side of her brain removed. She had to have a part of the frontal lobe removed from her brain. And yeah, it was just like not knowing if like the surgery, if she was gonna die
Mhm.
or when she was, we're like, okay, she made it. You know, everyone was saying, well, if she lives, she might be a vegetable the rest of her life. All of these things that they were speaking over her.
Mhm.
But it was my church that just continued to rally around us and pray. And Michelle just continued to respond, to like verbal cues, like give me a thumbs up, squeeze my fingers, wiggle your toes. And then it was just like over and over and over. And I actually, I'm sitting in an addition onto my house that the church had built for us. My
Mhm.
in-laws were living here at the time, taking care of my wife while I was at work full time as an X-ray tech, and we're trying to figure out like a good living situation.
Mhm.
And the ultimate idea was to build an addition, and they paid for it, and they built the whole thing on
Mhm.
their nights and weekends. Members of the church came and dedicated their time, so there was that. There was, they had brought meals to us for 2 years, 2 times a week, including like two Thanksgiving dinners where they brought all
Mhm.
of the fixings. So like, if I think that is one thing, and it was just became like a testimony. In the Old Testament, it talks about like after the Israelites crossed over the Red Sea or the Jordan, they set up a pillar of stones,
Mhm.
right? And the pillar of stones was their Ebenezer. So this is our Ebenezer to demonstrate God's faithfulness in something physical like the
Mhm.
addition.
Well, but and here's the thing that I think a lot of people need to, especially people of faith. Are you in a house that actually helps people or promotes the church itself? And I'm not being mean, but you would know that I feel I can say this to you without being a big thing. There's some churches that you go to that's just show and pomp and all this stuff. Then
Hmm.
there's genuine, the know we're Christians by our love. They came
Right.
and they stood with you and they were with you in your darkest hour and supported you. A lot of people going to a lot of churches wouldn't get that support. So that
Yeah.
right there shows you more true, what I would call true Christianity compared to religious obligation that we see a lot. Um, it just feels almost like God just, like you said, even though it's horrible, even though there's times that it's hard and it's rough, God's always just had that ability to step in and help guide, protect,
Hmm.
or draw you closer? Because I'm assuming that you had a good relationship with God beforehand, but now I'm assuming it's probably gone deeper. Would be
Yeah,
my
it
guess.
really has. I feel like so back in 2005, so we got married in 2005, and in 2009 we had another stillborn. So Jacob, Michelle was 20 weeks pregnant with Jacob when his heart stopped. And then Michelle had to deliver him, normally in the hospital. And then we got to hold him in the palm of our hand. He had a lot of physical, like, abnormalities. But up until that point, I would say my faith was very, like, it would wax and wane. Like
Mhm,
my Bible discipline was like hit or miss. My prayer life was non-existent. And that was one time where I can pinpoint, like, that was where I was the closest.
mhm,
And then I thought that was hard. That was also the same time where my enlistment was ending in the military. I had to figure out a way, like, how am I going to provide outside of the military, or grieving the loss of Jacob.
mhm,
And I really had nothing else to lean on but God. And so he brought me through that. And then fast forward to 2017 when Michelle had the stroke. And I'm like, what else am I going to lean on right now?
mhm,
And yeah, it's just you read parts of the Bible before something happens, and then you read something, the same thing after.
mhm.
And then you see like how much more context, like the book of James, for example. Consider it all pure joy, my brethren, whenever you face trials of many
Mhm.
kinds,
Yeah. And
right?
people, you know what's so fun? Not funny, but funny to me, because if someone on the outside looked in and went online and just started pulling up churches, you've referenced a lot of what I call old school foundational things that the church believed. But now online, all you hear is like you get the gold package or you get the best of everything and God's forced to bless you. And then you're like,
It's a
that's
lie.
not, yeah, it is 100% a lie. You can't pimp out
Yeah,
Jesus. That is a slogan that a hill I will die on. You cannot pimp out Jesus. Jesus and the disciples didn't get the gold package. You don't just get a gold package to have your best life always. It doesn't
right,
mean that you can't prosper. It doesn't mean your business can't be blessed. But
right.
do you feel like Job sometimes? Because just listening to your story, do you feel like you know, and I don't know. I just always relate it to different things. Like how much is someone willing to take? And like Job lost everything. And I don't want that to happen. You don't hear my, it's like, but you've gone through a lot of hard stuff. Do you feel like Job at times?
I was actually reading Job shortly after the stroke, and I was like, really, I was resonating with a lot that he was going through. Granted, like the physical things didn't really happen to me like it did my wife,
Hmm.
but like as far as the major loss, I was feeling it. I remember going through Job shortly after the stroke, and just had that as being another asset to my growth.
Well, but I think it's almost in my mind when I think about it, it's almost like a harder thing for us as husbands to see our wives in pain. It's easier if
Yes.
I can deal with it. I can deal with the
Yeah.
struggle. I'm built for this. But seeing them, it makes you rely on God more because you can't
I
fix
can't
everything.
fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I
Yeah,
mean,
there's truth.
that it's just like just listening to your story and the different things that you're doing. Um, I'm going to shift a little bit here because you're also
Sure.
an entrepreneur. You're also helping people with coaching and doing stuff there. Walk me through that a little bit. So, in the midst of the storm, in the midst of everything that's going on, you start one of the hardest things it is to do because being an entrepreneur is a huge self-improvement thing. It's not an easy
Yes.
task. Everyone online makes it look like it's great, but there's a lot of work, a lot of stuff that you have to do. How did you navigate that? And I love that you said, you know what, I wasn't perfect with it, but I just kept moving forward.
Yeah, I think one thing that was benefit to me is even when I was younger, I always sought a good mentor.
Mhm.
Um, when I was when I was a kid, like I hated math, but I had really good friends of the family who loved algebra, and he taught me, and he was like another father figure for me. When I was in the military, there was other people that I looked up to as a mentor, and the same is true now. So, I've always had a mentor with business, but the mentor that I'm with right now, his name is Colton, and I found him in Orlando. He was actually one of the speakers at an event by Ray Higdon. He does a Faith Over Fear event in Orlando, Florida, and Colton was one of his speakers. And what really stood out to me at that event was how he presented himself before he spoke. He's a big guy. He's like 6'7".
Mhm.
And but what he did really stood out because it was a faith-based event, but he got down on his hands and knees and he prayed and he asked God for wisdom before he spoke.
Mhm.
And then Granted, we were at a faith-based event, but he's the only one who did that. And that really prompted me to like, who is this guy?
Hmm.
So I did a lot of like Instagram stalking and I finally reached out to him.
Yep.
I'm so glad I did because I attribute a lot of my growth to him.
Hmm.
And but yeah, I had a lot of bumps in the road, you know, a lot of doing things the wrong way. But now the process that we're doing now is we run ads.
Hmm.
You know, I run ads to get people to reach out to me, learning the skill set of like DM appointment setting, getting on calls, which I'm getting a lot better with my closing skills. And
Hmm.
I just closed the deal just a few days ago, and with high ticket affiliate marketing, that's what I do.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, that's just in my mind, like that is the way to do it.
Yeah. Well, but having the right people in your corner, having someone come and get mentors, because if you look in the world of high performers, whether it's entrepreneurs, athletes, musicians, doctors, whatever, 99% of them have coaches. They have people that help guide them.
Yeah.
Or you can use the term mentor, or you can use whatever consultant, whatever term they want to follow. They have someone that has wisdom, knowledge, and skills to help you see your blind spot.
Hmm.
Because we can only see so much on our own. If you want to go quick, go alone. If you want to go farther and deeper, go with the group.
Go
And I think
together.
that's the key that we all have to learn. And then also, like you said, you're learning to get uncomfortable. You're learning to get into the call flow. You're learning to get into the
Right.
closing. You're learning to get into asking the right questions, to listening
Hmm.
to the client instead of just pitching them. Like
Right.
that's my world. I'm a sales guy. You know this. That's like what my
Hmm.
jam. And I love that you found someone that you could resonate with because the principles are the principles. I could teach you a principle. Your mentor could teach you a principle. Another guy could teach you a principle. But if you don't have that connection with the right person, it's not going to land. So I think first and foremost, for people that are listening to this, you have to understand you have to have the right person speaking into your life that you resonate with, that you trust, because sales is built on trust. Um, where can people find you at? We're not done, but I always like to do it like kind of in the middle. Where can people find you at?
Best way to get a hold of me is on Instagram.
What's your
Hmm.
Instagram reel? Or what's your
Well,
Instagram title? Name?
first, so Brett underscore. I have a couple. Make sure if you look me up, it's Brett underscore Rezewski.
Perfect. And we'll
So
drop that
that
in the show notes for sure. But I always just like to ask if people are like, well, why? What is the exact name of it? So we'll drop that in the notes so that they can do it. And then you do affiliate marketing and
hmm.
coaching, it sounds like. What have you found certain products have worked better for you? Is it like a belief system? Do you have a bunch of products you work with? What type of products are you an affiliate with right now?
So we work with medical grade water technology. The company is actually called Enagic. And so our special product is the Kangen machine, the K8.
Hmm.
And that my family has had a lot of benefits through for drinking the water and, you know, overall decrease in sickness. And my wife actually has a really good story. So she developed a pressure sore pretty early on after her
Hmm.
stroke. And then right around that time is when I started a Enagic. And I knew that the water machine, the different types of water was used in like Japan and Japanese hospitals as wound care.
Hmm.
And so knowing that, I was like, I'm just gonna try it. The pressure sore was at the point where it was becoming infected. So
Hmm.
it was like if I didn't do something, I would have to take her into the hospital.
Right.
And so I tried different kinds of water and it worked. I was like amazed at how fast
Hmm.
it had healed. And then now there's not even a scar.
Hmm. Well, again, the thread. Not that you don't have trials, not that you don't have adversity, not that things don't happen, but there's always seems to be different things that have come into your life at the right time to help you with what you're dealing with.
Amen.
I just that I'm always interested in people. Like I got into sales because I do want to make money. Like I'm not gonna hide that. But
Hmm.
I just love people. I love hearing their stories, how they come to a conclusion, where they're at. And it's just interesting always to see I see patterns sometimes in just different people on why they're this way and why they think the way they do. I know we've
Hmm.
talked about a lot of stuff. You shared your story. You talked about the affiliate marketing. You talked about your faith in God. You talked about the struggles and stuff you've gone through. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you feel on your heart you want to share with the audience?
Well, I don't know exactly what anyone is going through who is listening. One thing that was a common thread that I heard over and over, and even still, they're like, what I'm going through, they would say this to me, like, what I'm going through isn't significant because you've gone through, what you're going through is way worse. And I never liked that response because to me, like, we're all going through something that is significant to us at the time. And then once we're going through that, we find a way to overcome that. Something else makes it more significant, may happen. But we find a way to make it through. And if you're not doing this, like if you're trying to do it all without the Lord, like what are you doing?
Mhm.
I used to feel like I used to get teased, when I was little because like God is like, why is God your crutch? And I used to become embarrassed by that. But I'm like, heck yeah, God's my crutch. I don't know how I would do this without him.
Mhm. No, I love that. Well, I think people always, again, like we talked about rose-colored glasses or their experiences or their life or their stuff. But I don't know, it just comes to mind. In my weakness, he makes me strong. And
Hmm.
I
His
didn't
power is
quote it
perfected in
exactly.
weakness.
Yeah, I didn't like give the exact quote, but I think for you, that's just been a theme that you've had, which is amazing because you've gone through a lot of stuff. But I also love this that you didn't discount other people's thing because it wasn't maybe in their mind as significant as what you're going through. Like that was their perception. And I
Right.
think God's grace is significant for everyone where they're at. So I commend
Yeah.
you on that as well. Brett, thank you for being on. I've appreciated, just having learning more about you, learning your story, and learning about different ways that you can actually help people, and just like the different ways that God showed up in your life. I think so
Hmm.
many times we have too many people get caught up in the bad in the world, or this is wrong or that's wrong, but there's always grace and there's always mercy.
Yeah.
Again, I appreciate you being on the show, my friend.
Yeah. One more thing. Sorry. If people do want to work with me or figure out more of what I'm doing, yeah, just hit me up on Instagram. I'm glad to jump on a call with you and just see if it's a fit.
Yeah, awesome. No, love that. And guys that are listening, I encourage you, if this resonated with you, reach out to Brett. If you have a question, reach out. You never know what one conversation could do to change your life forever. Share this episode with someone that needs it. And until next time, go keep being amazing, keep doing the things that fill your heart with joy, and be the person you're called to be.